Well, howdy there, folks. I hope y'all having a great day out there. Welcome in the Financial Education Channel. If you're talking about a stock that I'm surprised I ain't never bought before, it's this stock we're talking about here today, cowboys. It is Berkshire Hathaway. A lot of people know about Warren Buffett. They know this guy is one of the richest guys in the world, worth something like $82 billion. And people are very confused on like how he made the money, where his wealth is held. People think like he just like buys a bunch of stocks or something like that, or he has some big investment fund, when actually he owns a company named Berkshire Hathaway, and that's what we're talking about today. This company that he is part owner of, and this is where his wealth is held. In this particular company called Berkshire Hathaway, you and we can buy shares of this stock, okay? And this is a stock I'm very surprised I've never bought before, because I've looked up to Warren Buffett as a legend. A lot of my investing disciplines are things that I've stolen from him over time. I studied like how he looks at a stock, how he judges a stock and whatnot. What's a good stock versus bad stock? And although we don't, 100% agree on all the stocks out there, there's some stocks he buys I wouldn't buy, some stocks that, I would buy that he wouldn't buy, or vice versa, right? But at the end of the day, we would agree on most situations. We would agree that most stocks we wouldn't want to be a part of, and we would agree that some of these stocks are phenomenal stocks. So this company, I'm super surprised I've never bought this stock before, and it's starting to look very, very interesting. I want to take a deep dive into this one today. So if you didn't know, this Berkshire Hathaway company, they have a big ownership stake in a ton of companies. I mean, a ridiculous amount of companies. Okay, I'm talking like 50% or more ownership, okay? Acme Brick Company, one of the biggest brick players out there. They own that company outright. Ben Bridge Jeweler, don't you guys know that commercial? Your personal jeweler, Ben Bridge. Well, if you grew up in Arizona and ever listened to the radio, you'd know that commercial, okay? He owns it. This guy doesn't even buy jewelry. He owns jewelry companies, okay? Benjamin Moore, one of the biggest paint players out there. Pretty much everybody knows Benjamin Moore, right? They own that company. Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad Company. We're talking about one of the biggest railroads in not just the United States of America, but in the world. They own 100% of this business, okay? And we're just tackling some of them, okay? This is just a ridiculous amount of companies they own, okay? 100% ownership stake in Clayton Homes. So if you live in a Clayton home, that company is owned by Warren Buffett. Court Business Services, which makes a ton of furniture related products that sell into big companies that have offices. They own that business. Dairy Queen, you ever got a Blizzard before? They own it. Duracell, the battery company. You ever had a Duracell battery? They own it. You got some fruits on your looms? Oh, they own that business too, okay? Geico. A lot of you guys watching this, you probably have Geico insurance. They own the business 100%. And by the way, very interesting thing that he's always done with Geico is he bought that business back when it was a very, very small business back in, I believe, like around the 60s. And what he's always been able to do with Geico is basically all the insurance premium they collect, go ahead and invest that money, make that money into even more money while you wait for basically to pay out, for somebody getting in an accident or something like that, okay? Always been a very successful company, and one of the main reasons this company makes so much money year in and year out. Helzberg Diamonds, another big diamond player. Man, this guy doesn't wear jewelry, and yet he owns all the jewelry companies. He must knows what people want. They own 100% of a company my grandpappy used to work for called John's Manville. I just had to give that one a shout out because I remember my granddad used to work there back in the day, back when they made asbestos products. Interesting, huh? Lubrizol, massive chemical player. They own it, 100% ownership stake. They bought that company for, I think it was a little under $10 billion back in 2011. McLean, if you ever worked at a grocery store or, a Walgreens or a Walmart or somewhere like that, you probably know McLean Company, okay? The Nebraska Furniture Mart, they own 80% stake in that. One of the biggest furniture marts you'll find in literally the entire world. It's insane, okay? NetJet, which basically offers private jet services without having to actually own a private jet. NV Energy, every time I pay my electric bill in the house, okay, Warren Buffett's making some of that money. They have almost a 91% ownership stake in NV Energy. Pacific Corp, that's a massive electric player in California, okay, another one they own about 91% of. Pilot Flying J, this is a kind of a recent purchase, happened in 2017, which is a big gas station brand. If you ever, travel on the interstate highway system, you're going to come across a lot of Pilot Flying J's. They have about a 38% ownership stake stake in them. RC Willey Home Furnishings, Russell Brands, See's Candies, along with a lot more businesses. They own pretty much the entire business, okay? So when you're buying into Berkshire Hathaway stock, you're getting all these businesses that you own. A lot of them are very good businesses. A few of them might not be such good businesses, but a lot of them are very good businesses. Pretty much almost all of those businesses are profitable. That's what Warren Buffett likes to buy, profitable businesses, okay? So needless to say, you get that side of the business, okay? You also get a ton of investments. Warren Buffett and Todd and Ted, the other two guys that run money for Berkshire Hathaway, they're constantly investing money in publicly traded companies that they believe they're going to make a lot of money on because the companies are undervalued, okay? They have massive positions in some of these companies. We're talking they own $52,000 worth of Verizon Corporation. We're talking they own over $2 million worth of RBL Bank. We're talking they own $6 million worth of UPS. Wait a minute, I sorted that wrong. I apologize, okay? Those numbers might have been big for my portfolio, okay? But not for Warren Buffett. We're talking over $40 billion worth of Apple stock. How insane of a stake is that? Over $40 billion just in Apple stock alone. Bank of America, they have over $22 billion worth. Wells Fargo, over $20 billion worth. You just add up those numbers, we're talking, $84 billion worth of just 3 stocks alone. Okay, Coca-Cola, that's a position he built huge back in the 1980s, about $19 billion worth of Coca-Cola. Imagine the dividends. Imagine the amount of money Berkshire Hathaway makes just in dividend money from those 4 stocks we just talked about. Coca-Cola, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Apple. It's in the billions of dollars. It's absolutely insane just how much money they make off just dividends each and every year. American Express, they have a $17.7 billion stake in American Express Corporation. Okay, the Kraft Heinz Company, we're talking over a $10 billion stake. And there's a whole host of companies we could continue to go through. We could go through a massive list of basically companies that they have less than $10 billion. So like, anywhere from hundreds of millions invested to several billions invested, okay? So they have a ton of ownership stake in a ton of companies. Those companies are generally companies that are growing and doing very well. And most of them honestly pay a ton of dividend money to Berkshire Hathaway, which that money either sits on Berkshire Hathaway's balance sheet until it gets reinvested, or Berkshire Hathaway just holds that money in cash, okay? Now, once again, Warren Buffett, this is an investing legend. So when you're buying into Berkshire Hathaway, you're buying into Warren Buffett, but you're buying into Warren Buffett kind of, I don't know how to put this nicely, but the guy's about to turn 90 years old very soon, okay? Guy's going to turn 90 years old, so you're getting the tail end of Warren Buffett, needless to say. But you're still getting Warren Buffett, and I still watch, Warren Buffett's most recent interviews he does sometimes on CNBC and whatnot, and the guy is still very much with it, okay? Most 90-year-olds, if people are even fortunate enough to make it to 90 years old, they're like dazed and confused. I can tell you Warren Buffett is anything but dazed and confused. That guy knows exactly what's going on. He still knows how to judge companies overall, but on the flip side, he has missed a lot of opportunities over the past decade or so just because he has kind of aged out of kind of knowing what is going on as far as the new up-and-coming huge companies and why a lot of these new companies are, going to be a lot bigger in the future. So he does miss out on that, but he does have Todd and Ted running money, who are very successful hedge fund managers who now, are kind of going to take the mantle in terms of investing money over the long term. And I judge Warren Buffett as being a good judge of character. You don't build a company to be a $500 billion company without being a good judge of character, without being able to hire people that are very good at their job. So I do have a lot of faith in Warren Buffett, okay? Now, if you're wondering how the heck can I even buy Berkshire Hathaway stock, you can buy Berkshire Hathaway stock, and you don't need $329,000, okay? That's how much it costs for an A share. So a lot of people were never even able to buy in this stock because it usually traded above $100,000. A few years back, they basically made it so you could buy B shares, which is part of an A share, and those shares are about $219 a share. Now let's take a moment here and talk a bit about the valuation of Berkshire Hathaway and why this stock is actually very interesting to me as a potential buy stock, okay? So if we look at Berkshire Hathaway as a company with a market cap of about, $534 billion. So a very, very big company, needless to say. We're talking about one of the biggest companies companies in the world. And this one trades at a P somewhere around 20. Now, it has gotten a little more confusing in terms of what the net income will be in a given year for Berkshire Hathaway because of some bad accounting changes done by the government, in my opinion, where basically now a company, if a company owns a ton of stocks like Berkshire Hathaway, if the stocks go up, they have to record that as profit made, even though it wasn't profit. It's really silly the way it's done now. And in a lot of ways, it gives a false interpretation of how much money a company's actually making or losing when it's a big, huge company like Berkshire Hathaway that has a ton of investments and publicly traded companies. It's a little more murky there, but needless to say, we're looking at a PE somewhere around 20 for this company. We're talking about a market cap of a little over 500 billion. We're paying for this company, okay? Now, we're getting a company that should have revenues of anywhere between 250 to 300 billion dollars a year. A lot of that will be dependent on how the overall economy does. Assuming the overall economy just grows at least a little bit per year, let's say 1 to 2% per year, growth like that should be very, very good for a company like Berkshire Hathaway. However, on the downside, this is a company that owns so many stocks in so many different industries that if the economy ever got hurt in a real, big way, let's say a big recession, the underlying businesses, so many of those would be hurt, at least in the short term. But we're getting a super profitable business, and we're getting a business that should produce, 250 to 300 billion dollars in revenue year in and year out, okay? Where it gets a lot more interesting is around the balance sheet. So you go ahead and look at the cash and cash equivalents in the short-term investments for Berkshire Hathaway as of right now. We're talking about $128 billion. And never mind that, after the next quarter, these numbers should be over $140 billion, assuming there's no massive buy out there for Berkshire Hathaway in the short term. So we're talking about a company I'm going to get here that's going to have 130, 140, if I'm buying it today, billion dollars on their balance sheet in just cash and cash equivalents and short-term investments, which is essentially money that can be deployed at any time in many different stocks or just buying businesses outright, okay? That is very, very interesting. Also, they own over $300 billion worth of equities or other investments. Remember, we went through all those different stocks they own. Remember, we went through all those different businesses that they own part of, right? All those are in that line item, $300 billion plus dollars. That's a lot of coin Berkshire Hathaway has. So they have a ton of assets on that balance sheet, okay? Now, they do have $97 billion in debt, but once again, because they have so much in cash and short-term investments, they could essentially pay off that debt overnight if they really wanted to. In terms of the total stockholder equity with this company, it's almost $400 billion. And keep in mind, we're paying a market cap on this company of, a little over $500 billion. So stockholder equity is very interesting where it's at with a company like Berkshire Hathaway. So if I'm looking at Berkshire Hathaway, this is interesting for 2 points for me, okay? The first point is I just think this business is going to do well over time. I think it's going to continue to grow. I think it's going to do well over time. And I think if you're looking at any 5 to 10 year span, I think it's almost automatic money that you would make money in a 5 to 10 year span with this stock. The just question is, how much money will you make in a stock like Berkshire Hathaway, okay? Warren Buffett's company here. But the other reason it's even more interesting to me, other than just, kind of buying, it's almost like buying an index fund, but a more focused index fund. The other reason it's very, very interesting to me is what I call a hedge bet, okay? So hedging your bets is a betting strategy which involves placing bets on different outcome to your original bet to secure a guaranteed profit regardless of the result or reduce your risk in a market. And this is why this stock is very, very interesting to me, because if I look at Berkshire Hathaway with all that cash on their balance sheet and what they're likely to continue to build back those cash levels, if I'm thinking about the talk of, a recession, could a recession come? When's the next recession come? If I think about that and I think about what's going to be one of the companies that's in the best position to capitalize on a recession, Berkshire Hathaway is one of the top 5 companies in the world, in my opinion, that will actually benefit in a massive, massive way long term from a short-term recession. And the reason being is, generally speaking, when recessions happen, stocks go down, business valuations go down, and a company like Berkshire Hathaway that might have, $140 billion on their balance sheet very soon, and maybe they'll build it up to $200 billion, they're going to be in a huge position of power where they're going to have so much money that they can scoop up a ton of companies for very, very cheap. And for that reason, this stock has my attention now. Let's put it that way. Because if I'm looking at this, I can say this stock is a hedge position I have, which essentially, if a recession happens, they're going to likely benefit in a massive way, because Buffett is if you look at some of the deals Buffett orchestrated in 2008, 2009, 2011, 2010, some of those years where we are, in the recession or coming out of the recession, he orchestrated some amazing deals for Berkshire Hathaway. And so if I think about a company that's going to be in a huge position of power in the next recession, one of the first ones that comes to mind is going to be Berkshire Hathaway. So I'm very actually interested in buying the stock just based upon a hedge bet on if a recession happens over the next few years. They're going to be ones that scoop up some great companies for some very cheap valuations, okay? So just in case, it's a hedge bet out there. So that's why I'm very actually interested in Berkshire Hathaway stock, along with the valuation. I think this company is going to do very well over the next 10, 20 years into the future. And for those reasons, I'm actually really interested in Berkshire Hathaway stock for the first time ever in my 10 plus years of being in the stock market, believe it or not. So let me know your opinion on Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway down there in that comment section. I would love to hear from you guys. As always, make sure you smash the thumbs up button if you enjoyed me sharing this video with you here today. Thank you for watching and have a great day.